So welcome to this first afternoon session in the RSS conference. This is part of the data science stream organised by the RSS Data Science section and sponsored by Deloitte. Pleased to say data scientists over the last sort of 3 years since I've been coming here to this conference have become sort of an increasing part of it, and we've heard a lot of sort of practical examples about data science. But how do you set about sort of building skills in data science and meeting that potential capability gap? So I'm pleased to say we've got three speakers from different sectors. So Adele Marshall has been invited from academic sector, so from Queen's University here in Belfast, to talk about her experience. And we've got Danny McConnell, who's a technical consulting partner at Deloitte, also here in Belfast, and Dave Johnson from the Office for National Statistics Data Science Campus, based in Newport, but David sort of hails from this island of Ireland as well. So three speakers from this island, and they're going to talk for a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes about their experiences, and then we'll, if it's okay, we'll save sort of questions till we have a panel session at the end. So Adele, Danny, and Dave will come out, and we will have the opportunity to have a discussion and answer questions of different types. So I think we could kick off with Adele.
I'd like to talk a little bit about actually a specific course that I set up. So this is very much, I was approached by a number of local companies, or companies based in Belfast, maybe not local, but international companies, and their key request really was that we know you have really good maths graduates from your courses. We know also you've got very good computer scientists, but actually what we want is somewhere in between. We want someone who can be computational and can code up, but we also need the mathematical ability of being able to understand and make the right decisions and determine the right models or algorithms that is needed. And really, once we started to look at the courses that we offer, we really didn't have what the companies need. We were for starters, our computer science courses are taught in one school. Our maths courses and statistics courses are taught in the School of Maths and Physics, so they're quite separate in a number of ways. And so that's what I was challenged with, to set about trying to bring the two groups together. And believe you me, that is a challenge within the university, because everything's very rigid and follows a very serious process and protocol with many different layers of hierarchy in the process. But the first thing I did was actually went out to a number of these organisations. Some had already approached me, and then I just went to other companies that I knew or that I'd worked with in the past, other organisations, so some of the public sector or government organisations as well, and started to try and get an idea of what type of, what really did they need in a graduate. If I had a nice self-contained graduate from a course, what is it, what skills would you need? And very clearly what came out of that was that it's good to have someone intelligent and to understand and be able to do mathematics and code, but also there's another side to it which is equally as important, which is all about the way you think, the way you communicate, how you can effectively convince other people in a team or a company to actually make decisions or use the information and knowledge you have to make decisions in their world. So for that reason, I'm sure some of you have seen this kind of slide before, but we can see there's hard skills here, but also there's that whole area of softer skills, of storytelling, problem solving, collaboration, curiosity, which curiosity to me is quite a big one in our area. Creativity and just the communication skills. So that's the type of skills I needed to make sure that these graduates were going to finish with. So how this doesn't fit with my typical structure of what a course normally looks like. And we kind of then went about trying to create a course that would take into account all of these skills. So I started asking, what programming languages do you need? How do you manipulate your data? And really it was from speaking to the users themselves and the industry to try and gather as much information as I could about how we would create such a course typically in the university, quite often what happens when it comes, and this is a master's level course, what happens when it comes to master's level is somebody's very passionate about their research. We can see where there's an interesting further research that can be carried out in it in a master's level, and you create a master's course from that. Whereas really this was more about what's the need, let's work out what the need is, and then we create the modules from that. And that's what we've done. We worked out what the need was, the skills. We need Python, we need R, we need SQL, we need Hadoop, etc., etc., etc. But what's the theoretical basis that we need to accompany those to get people to understand them and to be able to use and translate them? And we also need those softer skills of presentation and all the rest as well. So it was a bit of a challenge. Another thing that just happened to come to the surface when we talked to companies is they didn't quite like the idea of, if there was part-time staff, of them giving off their time a few hours a week or a day a week. They preferred it in a block form, that as if they were working on a project and they were just signed out of the project for a week. So ideally what they wanted is, can we just send our staff here for 1 week at a time, rather than half a day here and half a day there. So that's something we took on board, and we designed our course then that was modular. It was in block delivery mode. So each module lasts 4 weeks, and there's only 1 week of teaching, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, all lectures and labs for that entire module happen then. So it's quite intense, but that was just another thing that we took on board from the companies. Now that was from the companies. I'm not saying their employees liked it as much, but that was certainly what the senior management preferred it in the format of. And that's just the structure that we followed, where we had a reading week, which is like online courses like data camp and lots of material that the students would do online remotely. Then they had an intensive teaching week, and then coursework and assessments the remaining 2 weeks. We had full-time and part-time mode to try and cater with industry as well. But we also tried to incorporate quite an applied skills program with this. So for instance, one of the modules that we introduced was analytics in action. And I had the pleasure of running the analytics in action module, which was really, once we taught all the theory, once we taught our supported the students in their learning for different coding and programming languages, the last module was about putting it into practice. So I invented these analytathons, and had basically, it was a challenge, slightly more analytics focused than a hackathon, and we had companies come in that 1 week intensive week of teaching, and the company would come in and pitch a challenge with data. They might have got a terabyte of data, and the students would be put into teams, and collectively in teams have to pitch back to the company a potential solution of what they could do as if they were working in a team in industry. The first one they would have to do and then write a 2-page executive summary. So it wasn't about writing endless notes. It was really just about how you would actually do this in the real world. And then we had a second analytathon, again a team. It was a longer one, and they had to write slightly longer. And then a final one, which was an individual basis. So it's all real data, raw data coming from industry, real challenges. Some of the companies didn't know whether their challenges could be answered, so some could be quite open-ended. And then the students presented all their findings and their pitches back. So the final one, there was an individual presentation that they would make, and I video recorded all of the presentations, and then had quite a tedious job of sitting down with the students, giving them feedback on the presentation skills and really helping them understand how to communicate more effectively through presentation, as well as what they would have done in their teamworks. Feedback from the students, they were quite traumatised on day one, to say the least. I thought some were actually going to leave completely, but as the time went on, they completely got the benefit of it, and the amount of students that have said to me now in the industry, in their jobs, that was the make or break for them, that really helped them, and it put everything together. So all the knowledge that they gained from the other modules, they started to work out where it should be and how to deal with it and what bits they would need, that it isn't very containerized as you would imagine for your modules, that from time you'll be picking and choosing different bits and pieces of skills you need as it's required, really. One thing I haven't mentioned as well, that the Applied Skills programme is at the end of the 6 taught modules, so after the analytathons and the students think they can relax, we then have them going out to placement for 12 weeks. So they go and work in industry for 12 weeks, and although it takes a bit of time, we work with all the companies, and we ask companies to propose projects, challenges, things that they need, something useful for them that needs to happen in the company, something to do with analytics or their data, and I would check all of the project descriptions, make sure they're suitable, right standard, because this counts towards the students' marks. It's actually worth 3 modules for the students, and we then go through a process of recruitment and appointment of the students then for the placements. So at the moment, the students are just finishing their 12 weeks placement, this current cohort, and they have had weekly meetings with their company supervisor, their academic supervisor. They write a short 5,000-word summary at the end of it, and then we have a presentation that they do as well at the end of it, which is going to be the first one's next week, and that then completes the masters for them. And again, that experience, the real life experience, dealing with the raw data and the other challenges that comes along, seems to be something that was feedback the employers wanted a way back when we first started talking about the course, but certainly from the students' perspective, seems to be something that they've got a huge amount of feedback from, confidence from, learned more about how to communicate effectively, and last year we had 100% recruitment, or 100% success for the students, that they all had jobs before they'd even got their final exam marks from the course. So, but it gives you an idea kind of why we're trying to bring applied skills and get employer engagement in the course as much as possible. Another example is our Lunch and Learns, and some of you in the audience may have participated in these, so thank you. Where I get a company to come in, and because the intensive week of Monday to Friday 9 to 5, the students only have their 1 break in the day, which is their 1 hour lunch break. I get a company to come in, buy the students pizza, so buy their lunch, and then the company talks about what it's like to do analytics in the company, and they give real life examples of where they're using analytics. And it's useful for the students to get to understand the job opportunities and the type of work that they do, but it's also helpful for the companies to create awareness of any opportunities that they might have arising as well. Also shows the students a little bit more about the type of thing that they could be doing on their placements. So we have a number of these activities that we embed in the course as well. And if anybody does have any suggestions later of other things that we can do, they'd be more than welcome. So, where we are now, there's been, I guess, setting this all up and the challenges that we've had, and I guess this is only a fraction of the real challenges. But for us in the university, as I said earlier, we're quite rigid in the way we do things. So the way I created the modules, you know, from the need themselves, once I created the modules, then I went about actually getting lecturers to deliver the modules. And this is a course that was seen as a faculty-wide initiative, so it was going across all the schools and the faculty, so there was not really anyone wanting to take full responsibility for it, but yet people had to take responsibility for the teaching. So I have computer scientists, I had psychologists, I had aeronautical engineers and statisticians and data scientists all teaching on this course, and getting all their buy-in when they all have their own sets of rules and ways of doing things in their own skills. So that, to me, that in itself was a little bit of a challenge. Another thing which you mightn't expect was actually space and getting the lab space to be able to run the sessions. Because it's block delivery mode, you're saying I want a full week of the lab with no other course coming in to the lab that week. And that's quite demanding, especially as the class has grown in size. So we have met our target this year, so we will have 60 students starting next week on the course for the next cohort. And you can imagine they're getting the lab in place for that. So that's taken a bit of time, but we're getting there. The other thing is placements, getting the placement opportunities for the students. And that's something we're still working on, but I have a few ideas on what we can do for that in the future. So far it's been my contacts really, and unfortunately that's the way it quite often is. It's the academic and who they know, and reaching out. But hopefully things will change, and as we grow in size, we're going to have to think of that seriously. And the other challenge is the block delivery mode. It's really against everything else we do in the university. Our exams are at different times. We can't fill in the same forms because the structure, everything's different about it. So we're always we're having to amend everything we do. So there's been those little bumps along the way. And I guess the other thing is the culture. For us in the school, we'd one other taught masters, and there were 2 students on it. And then we had a taught masters, first year had 28, next year 35, and now has 60. So we didn't really have that postgraduate taught culture. And even the other academics, their view on the postgraduate students and the undergraduate students, and how you balance staff working roles and workloads as well. So, because at the beginning we didn't have any additional staff working on this either. So there's lots of challenges. Thankfully now we have 3 new lecturers in data analytics appointed. Our first member of staff, actually, new lecture started on Monday, and we are growing the team. So we now have, it's nearly like we needed to prove it was successful, and now we've got the resource in place to support that. One thing I'm quite interested in doing, I'm not sure whether this is going to work, so I'd be keen if anybody has any suggestions or have worked on it, done something similar, is I'm thinking that because we're getting so more and more students and trying to get a placement opportunity, of setting up an innovation lab for analytics in the university where we have a number of companies working together, pitching together with and doing some small sponsorship, and then working through some of the 12-week placements in that kind of environment. I'm not sure how sustainable it will be in the future to always have lots of companies providing placement opportunities. And we've started talking with ONS, and we've learned a lot about their programme, the Masters in Data Analytics Government, and there's nice synergies in what's happening there, which I'm sure you'll hear all about shortly, that we see it's an obvious way for collaboration, and that's something we really would like to explore then as a thing going forward in the future. I'm nearly out of time, but this is just some of my first cohort that graduated in December. My next cohort haven't graduated yet, they'll be this December. One striking thing, as I said earlier, all of them had jobs before they had their final results. So there certainly was a demand for them, and from what we can see locally and beyond, there's still a continued interest and demand for the students going forward. I was out visiting companies last week, and some of the companies in the 12-week, which I was actually quite surprised at, within the 12-week project, students had built models, had implemented them, and had them running in real time, saving the company money in that 12-week. And we're just in the process of refining them and writing them up as part of their project. So it can be done. Okay, so thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Danny McConnell, I'm a technology partner at Deloitte based in Belfast. And I just want to talk about this afternoon about 3, I suppose, perspectives that I have in terms of data scientists and growing data scientists for our organisation. And I think the stuff that Adele talked about there is very, very, I can say from my own point of view, is very important, because we actually have 3 students currently on placement with us. doing some stuff which is quite innovative, and I'm not sure where the patents belong, but I think the IP belong to us. But I'm sure that's a discussion afterwards. But I think the point Adele makes there is very, very important, because some of the three guys who come in, they're doing something which hasn't been done before. We pushed them quite hard, and all being well, all three, I think, most likely will be getting jobs with us if things work out. So I think, for us, it was a no-brainer. I'm not sure if anyone else in the room has ever gone through a 12-week interview. They're quite tough. So for us, whenever you get someone in for 12 weeks, you can very quickly figure out, do I want to work with this person? Will they fit in our organisation or not? Normally you get an hour if you're lucky. You might get an assessment centre for another hour, but you never get 12 weeks. And that 12 weeks is the social side as well as the work side. So for us, it's just a perfect way of figuring out, is this somebody who can work with us? But I want to talk about, I have no slides, so I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but slides are something which times I just struggle with because I've got too much words on them, so I just thought I'd leave no slides and remind you who I am. So I want to just cover off, say, three areas. The first one really is about successful programs. It wasn't that funny, honestly. It mightn't be funny at all. But successful programs which we have actually used ourselves to grow data scientists, because I think, as Adele points out, I'm sure you will realise, it's a very scarce skill. Computing is one side, mathematics is the other side, but for us, in the consulting world, which I work in, and we have a team of 50 people now, 50 data scientists in Belfast, it's very important you bring together the mathematical computing, but also the business, because you need to spend time with your clients, and you can't sort of stay in behind closed doors the whole time. So I want to talk about that as just one of the lessons we've learned. But in terms of the programs we've used, I'll talk about those, the lessons we've learned, and collaboration, because I think that's a theme I imagine you'll hear an awful lot about in the rest of the session, as well as what Adele talked about. So we recruit data scientists in a number of ways, 4 different ways. I suppose partnership working, if I look at the MSc that Adele talks about, that's our first entrance into this year. We didn't get involved year one, I suppose like everyone else, like Adele's colleagues in Queen's would say. We looked from the outside, we see how it went. It went from 20 to 35, we thought, there's something happening there. And then we talked to some organisations which we work with, and we asked them what the experience was. And we thought, okay, maybe this is something we should get into. So this year we've got 3 people who actually joined us, 12 weeks, and hopefully all being well, will get a job with us very quickly. So that's one thing. The other thing we do is we recruit graduates, and I suppose, I'm not sure if there is a data science degree currently, I don't think there is, but we would go after people with computing, with mathematics, and engineers. And I know for most people, whenever I mention this, engineers are great data scientists, because they seem to have the 2 sides of the brain that Adele talks about, but also they're very good at very good logic, but working with people. So we pick up an awful lot of graduates out of the universities. I think this year, last week, I think we took in 120 new people into Deloitte in Belfast, so we're up near 1,000 people now. 90 of those will be in technology, and I think of those, something like 30 are graduates. The rest of them, I'll talk about the rest in a second. The other thing we use quite a lot is, I think if you look at across Northern Ireland especially, the demand for people with STEM qualifications is huge. I've seen the Dave early on, just every time I hear about a new company coming into Northern Ireland, part of me thinks fantastic, wonderful, it's a sign of the times in Belfast. And then the other thing is, who are going to try and pinch from Deloitte, because that's what generally happens. So one of the biggest challenges we have is to grow people who haven't got a STEM background and help them into the technology world. So we run a thing called academies. We developed this about 5 years ago with the Belfast Metropolitan College. We take people from non-STEM backgrounds, and we basically put them through, and you get a theme here, it's a 16-week program, of which 12 is on-site, on-campus being taught, and 4 weeks then you spend with us doing a project. So again, we're into these long 4 to 12 week interviews, but again, for us, that was a really good way of getting to know people and to understand, can they make that transition from, should it be a history degree, a geography degree, in some cases a music degree, but I'm sure David or others will tell me music and mathematics are quite close. But that is the way we've gone about that. We've run it now for 5 years. I think we've recruited about 150 people through academies across all types of work, from cyber to digital to analytics to data science, and that has worked really, really well for us. The The latest thing which we've, and I say the latest, this is his 4th year now, is we've sort of dipped down into the lower level, and I mean lower as in younger, which for me is quite frightening. So we're now taking, we have a Bright Start scheme, which is for people leaving school with A-levels. So rather than going off to university and building up a nice debt profile for the future, what we do is take you in. We've developed, and Adele, close your ears at this point, we've developed a course, a degree course with the Ulster University for technology and business. And it's a 5-year course. We pay the fees, we pay the people on the course, and we basically teach you, the university teaches you part of that degree, and we teach the other part, so that through the 5 years you get embedded in technology, which we actually will use in the workplace. So for us, it started off 20, I think was it 4 years ago. This year, we took in 75 A-level students there, and thankfully all of the offers we made, all were successful. And it's quite interesting how that has evolved. I mean, and similar, I mean, it reflects what Adele was talking about with the master's course. In year one, when we went to talk to some of the, you would say, top performing schools around Northern Ireland, they weren't really interested in their pupils not going to university, especially not going through a company way. That just didn't work. So for them, there was no thank you. Some of the schools you would say are in the tier 2s, they were going, this is a really good idea, because they may have drawn children from less advantaged areas, and for some then there's an opportunity where they could go to university, not have debt. Their parents were very happy, and that first cohort we had were an amazing bunch of people. They will graduate next year, and I have to say they were the ones that really encouraged us, because they were like your C's and D's or B's and D's A-level students. So they weren't your A stars. They were sort of people who had worked very hard, they were very good. The one thing they had was an amazing work ethic, and they have just shone once they come into your organisation. It's amazing how word spreads. I think this year we had something like 400 applicants, and we took 75. All of the big schools, as you would call them, all of the high-profile schools, have all now people in our academy, our Bright Start scheme. And the academic qualifications are now around A's and A stars, because the people we're now attracting are the top people in those schools, in all of the schools. So that has really, really worked for us, and I think a number of our competitors have also started doing that. So that's the way where we've grown the talent pool. I think one thing I would say is that it's phenomenal to get 18-year-olds into an organisation, but obviously there's challenges working with 18-year-olds coming into those their friends are all going to university and doing 2-3 hours a day or maybe less a week, and we expect them to do 37.5 hours and to go to university on a Friday afternoon, sometimes on Saturday as well. So that has had challenges, but it's a really good scheme, and it's one which we've seen working quite well. So that's how we get people into the data science environment. To say what we have people who have been academics in the past and have left academia to come join us. For those who work in Israel and other public sector organisations, we do work with those organisations, and then people like to join us once they see the experience. And obviously, I say through the graduate recruitment, the Bright Start recruitment. So we've got a very diverse range of people who work from us. Some who are in their late 40s, you would say, and some who are 18. And it's quite interesting when you bring that all together. And I suppose that's one of the lessons that I would say when you go out or when you are looking for a role, and from an employer's point of view, when you're looking to recruit people into data science, you have to know what you're getting into. I've talked to a lot of colleagues, I've talked to a lot of other organisations, and they say, you guys are doing a lot of work in data science, like, I have to get one of those. You get one of what? You go, one of those data scientists. You go, please don't do that. Because you're going to sort of recruit someone who they're going to come in with expectations of becoming and getting into the bit of an inquiring mind. They're going to be creative, they're going to add an awful lot to your organisation, and you're going to bring them in and you have no infrastructure, you have no knowledge, you have no concept of what you want, and guess what? They're going to hate you and going to leave. And that's the one thing I would say from my experience, is that when we started out on this journey about 4 or 5 years ago, we had to be very clear with ourselves that you only recruit people who you can see value in terms of what they can do for you, but you have to give them the opportunity to grow and to be challenged. And that's my second lesson learned, is that data scientists get bored very quickly. see a few people nodding, because that's one thing we learned. If you put a data scientist into a role where they spend their days data cleansing, you can know whenever they're not data cleansing, they're surfing the web looking for a new job. That's the way they are. Okay? You have to always challenge. You have to have innovation. And some of the projects that we're working on, one of the things we do is there's SBRI funds come out. There's part of the UK strategy in terms of innovation. We go after funds where we actually get the chance to go out to do innovative things. So one of the projects we're working on, and one of the guys, in fact, from the master's course, is looking at the using artificial intelligence to categorize music from the jingle point of view, so that you can actually look to see if there are people trying to steal patents or copy patents. We dreamt this up. One of the guys dreamt this up. We sent it into Adele, and she went, "That sounds a good idea," and we were going, "Well, not quite sure." But it's amazing, just we didn't know if it would work or not. But this person spent 12 weeks doing that. Somebody else just looking at trademarks and looking at images. And some of the stuff which we can see a commercial value to, we're now seeing people who are being challenged but are using their brains to come up with solutions. And I think that's the thing we would say, you have to challenge these people. You don't have to make them work 14 hours a day, but you have to challenge them. My note to remind myself of the next point, and when I was talking to a colleague, I was saying, be careful how you say that, Danny, because that could go down very badly in a room full of data scientists or statisticians. One size doesn't fit all. So not every data scientist is going to have, we would call the right-hand side of the brain, who are creative and sort of, what do you say, inquiring mind. Not every data scientist is going to have the other side of the brain, which is the mathematical computing. Not every data scientist you meet is going to want to spend his day or her day being part of a team. Not every data scientist you meet wants to be standing at the front of a room, lecturing and talking to people and delivering presentations. Not every data scientist wants to be writing reports. So one of the things we say is that in that recruitment process and in that career path, it's very, very important to recognize what are the strengths of the individual, what are the keys to that individual to succeed and to grow and develop, but also what are the limitations that that person does not ever want to get near. So as people who work for me, and if I say to them today, I can't make this presentation, will you just a couple of pages, wing it down there to the ICC and stand up and just talk. They would rather go into that corner, hide in there with the laptop and just hide behind that thing and just never be seen, because that's not them. So one of the things I say is we had to be really careful in terms of understanding what you want from the people you recruit and helping them achieve the best that they can, but don't push them into something they don't want, because if you do, they'll just leave. It's a very competitive marketplace. I mean, I wish that I was 30 years younger and had got my degree in chemistry and was doing mathematics or doing data science, something else, because I would make a killing. Honestly, God, the market out there is huge. I've seen it very on Adele, but some of the people who work for me, they're very well paid in Northern Ireland. They come in to see you. It's usually a Friday, by the way. I don't know why they always ruin my weekends. It's always a Friday morning. Danny, can I have a word? Yeah, no problem. Well, I got this wee offer. What offer? Free Nando's or something? No. I've got a 30% pay rise, a 40% pay rise. One guy came in a year ago and he had a 300% pay rise. And it wasn't that he was getting paid £2.50. He was getting paid really well, but he got a huge pay rise. It's unbelievable demand for data scientists. So for those who are embarking halfway through, changing your career, you have hit the money. Honestly, whenever you become rich and famous, come back and tell me about it. Throw me a few pounds if you see me out in the street. But honestly, I think that you've chosen a really good career to go after. And the last thing I would say is support. It's very important to have a support mechanism around the people you bring in. One of the things we've noticed from the guys who bring this year from the master's course is that we have people who understand infrastructure. They work in AWS, they work in Google, they work in the Microsoft Azure, R, Python, da-di-da-di-da, all of the stuff that's taught in the course. They've been doing it for a number of years and they're very proficient at it. And I think that's those people develop from, because if you put somebody into a brand new team and brand new organisation and say, come you in straight out of university after your master's and set up a data science team, the chances are they may struggle. So I think, having that support mechanism around them and building that collaborative network to allow them to succeed is so important. So then my last point, and I know I got the 5-minute warning about a minute ago, so I'm going to go through this quite quickly, is collaboration, I think, is very, very important. It's one of the lessons that we learned. We collaborate a lot with the public sector. We do a lot of work with not so much ONS, but with NISRA, and we'd love to do more with the Data Science Campus, but we haven't quite found the area yet. But we do a lot of work with NISRA, we do a lot of work across all of the public sector in the UK, and that collaboration in terms of innovation and bringing new, fresh thinking to solve some quite challenging projects and challenges for organisations is very, very important. Obviously, universities, the schools. Now the schools are really tuned into Deloitte, and they know who Deloitte are. Whenever I joined Deloitte a number of years ago, after I left school, Deloitte was an accountancy firm. Now I think that's changed. So we do a lot of work with schools, we do a lot of work with colleges. Some of the leading institutes, like the Alan Turing Institute, we work with them, we have a partnership with them. And also really cool ones like McConnell Technologies, which we find very useful in terms of bringing some of our best people through and giving them access to working with people like McConnell Technologies. Obviously, if you're in the motor Formula One, you'll know who they are, and also Apple as well. I think the last thing, being someone from Northern Ireland who's been lived here all his life, I think one of the things I would see is that in the past we seem to be we are a very competitive business area. We like to compete, we like to be number one. But one thing I would say, which come across really, really strongly to me whenever I talk to people from Allstate or Liberty or BT or PwC or wherever else, Kinos, is collaboration is the way that we're starting to change things in Northern Ireland in terms of working with the universities, getting more people through the STEM qualifications, working with the universities, bringing in our own degrees, working with the colleges, running our own academy programs. We have a demand. I think it's a great place for us to grow. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to have your career. 20 odd years ago, this wouldn't happen. But now I think the demand for data scientists in Northern Ireland is huge. And I imagine that if you're in a job, you're in a degree course, you're in a master's course, or wherever you are on that journey, I'd imagine you would say that their opportunities here are phenomenal. So from an employer's point of view, I think you are in the right place. If you're a data scientist, if you're thinking about it, you're heading in the right place. As I say, I'm just sorry that I'm not 30 years younger and starting over again. But thank you for your time this morning. And as I say, I have a big call, I think, to Queen's from the work they're doing in terms of the data science, because that was a challenge, I imagine, taking on a master's course with 20 people. The fact you've tripled it in 2 years is phenomenal. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, everybody. So, as Peter said, I'm Dave Johnson, and I work at the Data Science Campus of the Office for National Statistics. And I'll tell you a little bit more about who we are and what we do as the talk goes further. But really what I want to talk to you today about is how we within the UK public sector have basically learned from what our colleagues in the private sector and in academia have been doing, the two sort of contrasting but also collaborative approaches towards data science capacity building. Data scientists. Show of hands. Hands up everybody in the room who considers themselves to be a data scientist. Okay, and who thinks they're a statistician? Okay, so keep those numbers in mind there. About 2.5 years ago, across the UK public sector, we undertook a series of workshops to try and understand what was data science within the public sector, with a particular focus on central government departments. We wanted to understand what was the role of a data scientist within the UK government. So we brought together analysts, data scientists, statisticians, etc., who were working in the data science field into a series of workshops to basically crowdsource what we thought a data scientist in government might look like. And this took place over the course of about 3 to 4 months, led by the government's digital data and technology profession, and then also the government statistical service. So folks coming from a computer science background and folks coming from a traditional stats and analysis background. Each workshop maybe brought together 40 or 50 people to examine the various aspects of the work that they did. And from that, we actually put together a series of job models and job profiles and career pathways for data scientists in government. I do not expect you to read everything that's on this slide. Between myself and Danny, we have an average number of words on our presentation and that. What we did was we mapped out what a data scientist might do within different government departments, the type of problems they might tackle, the type of skills that they would bring to bear on these. We also try to understand the different levels of seniority and experience required for the types of roles within UK government, okay? And to give you a benchmark here, folks that are recruited directly into the UK government, coming straight out of their master's or PhD program without any industry experience, end up probably at that graduate or associate data scientist level, okay? And you can see in each given government department, the head of data science would be at the top. They tend to be a mixture of both a traditional policy civil servant, but also they have a strong technical expertise. Most of the other roles below lean more heavily on the technical side of data science rather than the traditional civil service, people management or policy skills and that. So we rolled out 2 parallel job models, one for folks coming from computer science background with less of a traditional stats experience, and then one for folks coming more heavily from a statistical background. But functionally they tend to be the same because, as we all know, data science is a big church and that. So did this actually work? What we're in the middle of right now is doing an audit, ourselves in the campus and our colleagues in the Government Digital Service, of the entire UK public sector, to try and understand existing data science capacity, not just within central civil service departments, but also things like devolved administrations, local governments, the health services, the police services, etc. So we're about halfway through. The very first thing that we went out and did was, across central government departments, we did a skills survey of data science practitioners. There is an obvious irony here of using traditional survey methodology to assess data science skills within government. But until we can tap into all of their mobile phones and Slack channels, I think this will have to do. What we discovered was, across central government departments, there were somewhere between 800 and 900 folks who identified as data science practitioners. Okay? Of those, about 200 were in full-time dedicated data science roles, i.e. they were called a government data scientist. So where does everybody else come from? Well, as you would expect, quite heavily leading on the analytical professions. So about 30% of data science practitioners within Whitehall departments are statisticians. About 30% would be operational researchers. There's some economists, there's some social researchers or so, and that. So again, one of the things that we had to realize was, just because you might not be actually called a data scientist, you might not be employed as a data scientist, but you're still a data science practitioner, okay? And in fact, the most frequent users of data science skills, methodologies, tools, and approaches across UK government are not full-time data scientists, and that. So, and also there's a heavy bias towards folks that have just been recruited in from university at one end at that higher executive officer level. But then also we've got folks up here at the G7 level, that's 23.5, which would be folks with 5 to 8 years experience or so, typically, if they are recruited in that level. And what that tends to reflect is strong, experienced statisticians that have been in government for a while, but might not have a formal data science background, i.e. they've picked up the skills along the way, but it might not have been something that they studied in university. So what does all of that mean to me and to us? So the Data Science Campus is an R&D hub for data science and AI for the UK government. We're based at the Office for National Statistics in glamorous Newport in South Wales, but we also have hubs in Glasgow with the Department for International Development, and in London and Southampton, where the ONS census team is. We were set up about 3.5 to 4 years ago, almost at this stage. Our primary focus is to explore new data sources, methodologies, technologies, and approaches in data science and AI, and make recommendations out to ONS and the rest of UK government as to their validity, or if it's worth sort of doing more work on this. We tend to do short research projects, maybe 6 months in duration, heavily focused on social policy or economic statistics, though increasingly we're doing work around the sustainable development goals and development. Probably about 75 staff at the moment, the majority of whom would be research data scientists, again with 5 to 8 years postdoc experience before they joined us and recruited from outside of the civil service. And about 18 months ago, John Manzoni, the chief exec of the UK Civil Service, got up at a presentation in the London School of Economics talking about digital and data transformation across the UK public sector, and he announced that by 2021 the Data Science Campus would train up 500 data scientists for the public sector. which was news to us. But if the Chief Exec of the Civil Service tells that you're going to do something, you're going to do it. Now, prior to this, a lot of the training side of things that we've been doing within the public sector had relied on using experienced data science practitioners. Some of them might have had a university lecturing background or some experience while they were going through their PhD or postdoc, but they weren't professional trainers, okay? They would have done this as a side role within them, which, to be honest, led to a mixed bag in training results, but it also, increasingly in a research environment or an operational data science environment, took time away from the main focus that they were trying to do. So we thought what we needed to do was professionalize our approach to training within data science, and we looked at two different models. You could go towards the university model, where you have an academic-based graduate-level program, or you could go down, say, the consultancy route, where you have trainers that go in and work with departments as a whole to be able to deliver a data transformation program for them. And this being the civil service, we decided rather than make a decision, we would do both. Okay. We've got two different programs, two different approaches, and I'll talk a little bit about them here. On the academic side of things, much of what we do mirrors very much what Adele was talking about. We have an academic network across the country. Our white dots here are our offices, and then what we have is we have a number of universities, particularly doctoral training centres in AI, data science, stats, operational research, and even physics as well. And these are listed in the green dots here, and then the pink ones are university partners that deliver a service for us. So on the research side of things, what we wanted to try and understand was, could we reach out and encourage fresh graduates that are coming in from university to join the public sector? One thing that we cannot do and compete with our colleagues in the private sector is, if you think, Danny, that you have it bad with folks coming in and offer higher paychecks, try being in the public sector and competing with you. Hopefully what we can do is offer really interesting work that gives people an opportunity to impact the lives of millions of people around the country or so. But the fact is that for a lot of fresh graduates, they may not realise those opportunities. So what we wanted to try and do was break down those barriers, partner with some of the doctoral training centres and bring students in to be able to take sort of 12-week place. There's that 12-week again. 12-week placements with the campus to undertake public good or social good work or so. We also launched a joint PhD program with the Turing Institute. So again, how do we bring cutting-edge research skills into the campus, but also how do we encourage others to think about a life within the public sector? On the other side of things then, we have a range of universities that deliver training programs for us. So we partnered initially with 3 universities, Oxford Brookes, Southampton and UCL in London, to be able to roll out what we called our Masters in Data Analytics for Government. So Southampton for many years had been delivering a Masters in Official Statistics aimed at experienced statisticians that wanted a more formal academic qualification. We wanted to try and increase the scope of that type of offering to include both a core set of advanced statistics modules, but then also strong data science skills and machine learning, NLP, etc. And we rolled this out about 3 years ago within those 3 partner universities. The campus sponsors public sector analysts from across the UK to undertake these programs. And similar to Adele's course, where we will offer a week-long CPD module where we bring the lecturers on site to a government location to deliver an intensive program. We're those pesky employers. You know, whether it meets the needs of the students, we're not sure, but it suits us best as an employer. One of the things that we did was, if you notice where those 3 universities are, there's a strong geographic bias for those down within sort of the south of England. But obviously the public sector is UK-wide, which is why we reached out to a number of university providers in Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales to be able to see, well, if we don't have a program with them yet, could we partner with them to fund some existing civil servants to go on the program? So we've been sponsoring a number of students to go on Adele's existing course. And what we would hope is that universities then would be able to roll out with our master's program for public sector employees. And that's for sort of folks on the more advanced end, analysts that have a number of years experience but want to refresh their skills with a data science bent. But what about folks coming straight from school? Very similar to one of Danny's programs. Within England and Wales, there are developed apprenticeship frameworks, okay, for folks coming straight from their A-levels. One of the first things we did at the campus was launch a level 4 apprenticeship in data analytics in Wales. This was a 2-year program, bringing in folks straight from their A-levels, and we've run 2 full cohorts of that within the campus at the moment. I think across ONS there's maybe about 15 to 20 folks that have gone through that analytics diploma framework. It's a mixture of classroom-based training provided by an external provider, but then hands-on project work from day one with more experienced data scientists. The first full cohort of that graduated last year. And of the 8 folks that came through it, as I said, it's a 2-year program, they all got full-time jobs within ONS or government. But most of them got promoted during the time of their apprenticeship program, within, say, maybe about 18 months of the 2-year program, into a position that within the civil service would normally require a master's to be able to go into. So again, this is a diploma course, the equivalent of first year in university, and after 18 months in this apprenticeship, they were able to demonstrate through a competitive interview process that they had the skills now that were on par with somebody coming from a master's program, which for me is just one of the best things that I've seen the campus sort of roll out, or so the impact of this program. We've now launched within Wales a degree level apprenticeship. So again, we have our first 4 apprentices come in this year. It's a 3-year program, and at the end of it, they will walk out with a BSc in data science. And one of our colleagues on the campus led a trailblazer group across England with industry and academia to develop the framework for that. So we rely heavily on university partners to be able to provide what we call academic training in the case of individuals that are looking at upskilling as part of their personal growth, but then also what we call our vocational training, which is apprenticeship programs or so, and that. But we realized that just relying on external providers was not going to meet the needs for what we wanted to do. And so what we decided to do was set up our own internal L&D department. And we really wanted to try and mirror a university structure. So what we actually did was we went out and recruited in a number of university lecturers within data science at our hubs in London, Newport and Glasgow to develop a centralised curriculum for data science and AI across all of the UK government or so. We work very closely with the Government Statistical Services Learning Academy and with the Government Digital Services Academy, again their training programme there, to be able to deliver our content across the UK to public sector folks wherever they want it. These programmes are very much focused on undergraduate level courses. Okay, so these would be coding languages like R and Python, more data engineering stuff like PySpark, but then machine learning and a heavy emphasis on things like natural language processing, because government has a huge amount of unstructured text data, as you would imagine, so that's where the biggest demand is at the moment. What we've done is, on top of these courses that we deliver out directly ourselves with partner government departments, on the bottom here you can see just some of the logos of the programs that we've been delivering. What we tend to do is, in addition to, say, we will go into a government department that's trying to do a digital or a data transformation, and we'll meet with them to understand what their needs are, what are they trying to do with the data that they have, and we'll put together a bespoke training program for their organisation as a whole. We tend to, rather than say train up 250 analysts in a given organisation at a time, we'll go in and focus on a core group of super users, maybe 15, and train them up to an advanced level, and then hand our material over to them and support them as they scale out across the organisation themselves. Because to be honest, that's the only way that we're going to meet the training up 500 qualified data scientists by 2021 with a training team of like under 12 people or so. Okay, and that. We also then have a mentoring program where we bring in public sector analysts from different government departments to come in and do a formal program with us at the Government Digital Service, a 12-week program, 1 day a week on a project of their own devising with their home department, mentored by a more experienced program. And what we've recently just started to do is scale this up not just to the UK public sector, but to the international public sector. So the Department for International Development, you heard Charlotte earlier in the keynote before lunch, we've partnered with them to build out a hub of the campus at their office in Glasgow, and this will be focused on capacity building for the global international development sector. And that, so providing some of our research programs, but also our training and L&D programs to partners globally. So the idea is that between the academic programs with partner universities and the in-house training programs that we run ourselves, we can not only train up experienced, dedicated, full-time data scientists, but increasingly our focus is on providing skills to wider statistical community and other analysts that don't necessarily want to become full-time data scientists. See, when we were setting up the campus, our then national statistician, John Pullinger, said to us that he views data science, he said there'll always be a need for dedicated full-time data scientists in a government organisation, in fact in any organisation. But it's more than that. He views data science as a toolkit. It's a suite of tools that any analyst should have. See, if we were setting up the campus 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it probably would have been the big data campus. If we were setting up the data science campus today, it would probably be the AI campus. The terms that we use change, you know, as the complexity of the type of work that we do. But at the end of the day, it's not just the specialization. It's something that will be part of every single statistician's toolkit within the next 5 years or so. And this is what we're trying to do, meet that demand. To give you an idea then of the scale of the work that we do, for the last full quarter, April to June, we trained up 250 people, which is a good benchmark as we move towards that 500 trained data scientists. I think we're going to exceed the numbers that we're looking at. A range of programs across multiple departments. Where do we have it there? 670 hours of mentoring and a huge range of live events that we went around and delivered. But the thing you're all asking is, does it work? Okay, so we'll give one example here. Katie Davidson, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, she undertook the mentoring program, the accelerator as it's called, with her colleagues over in the graduate, in the government digital service in London. She went in for 1 day a week, 12 weeks, as an analyst working on a data science project. After she graduated from that, the campus sponsored her to undertake a master's at Birkbeck in London before we rolled out our own MDataGo program. As a result of those two programs, she got a promotion into being head of data science within the Department for Health and Social Care, and is now setting up her own data science hub, where we are out training up the analysts that she's recruited in. So what we see here is, over the course of 3.5 years, you have all elements of these coming together. You have somebody who's undergone a mentoring program. You have them doing a formal academic program to advance their own personal career. Then you have the campus coming in and being able to provide operational support to set up a team and provide it at scale or so. So it is definitely too early to tell, because we're only, 3.5 years into the life cycle of the campus. But we're well on target for hitting that target of 500. The ultimate question is, train them to do what? And I think that's the one thing that we can't put a pin in right now, because the needs of government constantly change, constantly grow, constantly evolve. We're very much focused on NLP today, but 2 years' time we could all be about Earth observation data. And so what I would say to everybody in the room that's at both sides of their career, whether they're a graduate thinking about their first job, or whether you're in industry or academia and experienced, think about doing a tour of duty within the public sector. You know, it's not like a puppy is for life, not for Christmas. You can be a government data scientist for a limited period of time. In fact, this is a model that's been used quite successfully in the US. Come in, do a 2 or 3 year tour of duty. Bring the skills, the experience, the enthusiasm that you have into bear on the biggest problems that government and society face today. The rewards might not be the most, pocket-enriching awards, but from a mental and a moral point of view, you will go home sleeping better at night. And with that, I'll stop. Thank you very much.
Yes, for Danny, you said that you can't force someone to do something they don't want to do if they want to hide behind, screen and not present. Did you have any success stories with bringing people in and trying to coach them into doing more of the soft skill stuff, or were there any success stories, or did they all leave, as you said?
Just before I answer that question, so we're looking for experienced data scientists. We're always recruiting. Sorry, Peter. No, I think actually we flipped that in his head. Whenever I joined Deloitte a number of years ago, and there was a career path, and it seemed to be that every grade you sat for 2-3 years, you did your time, and you up you went, and you really had to have all that. You had to go out to the market, you had to work with clients, you had to be able to sell work, deliver work, blah 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 blah. This last number of years, we realised not everyone wants to do that. So we've developed different career models. So if you want to become a guru in R or Python or SAS or Hadoop or whatever else, you will not be the person who will be standing up at a presentation with a multinational talking about, the Deloitte and what we do and blah 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 blah. But if someone technical person in the room asks you a question, you will be the person. And I've seen people who, there was, so I'm currently working with one of the Whitehall government departments. We're doing a very significant transformation program. It's all based on AWS technology. And we went along to that presentation, so if you ask me a question about AWS technology, the chances are I might understand what AWS stands for, but beyond that I might know very much else. But one of the people you talked about was in the room, and they had someone there who was very technical, and they asked a very technical question, and I just said, Stephen, would you answer that? And I asked the question, and the guy sort of thought, you know, a little bit. So these two guys had a ding-dong for about 15-20 minutes, by which time the person on the GDS side, I should say, was the Government Digital Service, realised I should just stop now because this person really knows his stuff. They were back, they sat down again, they went quiet again, didn't speak for the rest of the presentation. But for them, you know, that was to turn around and say, like, that's what they wanted to be. They publish white papers, they drive innovation, and I think, you know, for us, we've changed as an organisation to allow people to get to flourish. 10, 15 years ago, they would have left. But we've changed our data model to allow them to get to the highest, you know, to get to partner level in the firm. That is now possible because the skills they have, people like me will never have.
It's interesting. That's one of the biggest challenges that we've had with building out the job models for data scientists in government, and it's the same for a lot of technical roles like, you know, software engineers or DevOps folks or that, is that the civil service career progression model tends to be focused on additional people management responsibility, you know, that you'll grow and you'll become less hands-on, it'll be more about sort of managing people who are doing the bulk of the work. And to be honest, quite a lot of data scientists have no interest in people management. You know, they're very much in it because they're focusing on a problem and attacking the problem and how to unlock it and how to fix it. So being able to roll out something like a technical career pathway for folks that they can demonstrate that their skills are more advanced, they can grow, they can continue to have their career develop without having to take on that people management responsibility. But even at the other end of the spectrum, I was at Turing and Warwick University were running a summer school, Data Science for Social Good, over the last weeks. And they had their graduation program last week in London. And all the students, and these were basically the undergrad students, would be sort of on the program, would be getting up and delivering their presentation. And they were delivering it in a very TED Talk style of way, okay? Because they had a professional coach come in and teach them how to present an idea. And it was very short on the technical and more on sort of the scope and the impact of the work that it was doing. And I think the thing that we've learned is that even if you're technical, being able to talk to a non-technical audience is really, really important if you're trying to get your ideas across to policymakers or that type of thing, because the policymaker has a limited understanding in a short window. You need to be able to describe the impact of the work that you're going to do, not the whiz-bang nuts and bolts. And I think even for some of our incredibly senior, like our grade sixes, that's been a challenge for them to be able to effectively, they get really excited about sort of the innovation of the work, but the person they're speaking to isn't that interested in the innovation. They just want to know, you know, is this going to help me make my decision better or faster? Or so. I think that's one of the lessons that we've had. Appropriate levels of communication, I think.
I think that's very important because I think very technical people trying to convey very technical information to people who aren't very technical is quite challenging. And I think that's one thing we say. We talk about collaboration. There's more collaboration. We're talking here about growing skills, but one of the things that we also look for is, can you be part of a team? And that, you know, the team will have different strengths. So someone will want to be, I want to go out and talk to the business and I want to sort of understand the business processes and how it all works, but I don't really understand the technical. Someone will sit between that person and the technical person and go, this is what that's they're talking about over here, and then how do you bring this into the technology world. So the teams we have, you know, we would never put a data scientist out by themselves. That's just not going to work. So we would generate a team of 5. I mean, one of the most exciting projects I'm working on in the AI space, we could 10 people, I'd say, on that team. 2 or 3 are business analysts, one's a project manager, and then the rest are between the real hard coders and the guys who are between the business analysts and that. So you've that sort of graduation of sort of soft skills right through the deep techniques, and that works really well. The other thing I would say, notice, is that data scientists are also like architects, and I don't mean architects in terms of data architects, I mean they're very precious. So it's interesting also times when you have a team of 2 or 3 data scientists, just to make sure that egos don't take over. And one thing I would say is that the one way of, and it's interesting to make it with this panel, one thing we've noticed is once you have a gender mix in a team of data scientists, the balance comes about as the egos go out the door and they work together in a team. If you have 3 males in a room and then 3 alpha males and they all think they're the best, that's never a good answer. So that's one. The other thing we do is we do a lot of work to try and make sure we have the gender mix, because females in a data scientist team, they just get rid of the egos. Have no idea how to do it, but they just do it. You agree with that, Adele?
We actually do that with our analytical ones and make sure that we have the balance in each of the teams. So the students don't get to pick what teams they're in. I give them and make sure that that balance is there. So I would agree, I'm not sure how it works, but certainly
It works.
there's a much better balance in having all girls in the team or all the guys.
Yeah.
Female data scientists do have egos too, so in my experience.
I was further away from Dave when he said that, so I thought that was okay.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, I'll start in the middle there, thanks. Yeah.
I was just going to pick up, Danny, you mentioned a comment in terms of your Bright Start programme, that the first year you were recruiting students from, if you like, the second tier of schools with A-levels that might be slightly less.
Yeah.
Now you're recruiting people with A stars and so on. So in some senses, I suppose the challenge to you is, are you recruiting the right people? Because in a sense you said that the folk that you took in the first year had a tremendous work ethic. Now I don't know whether you judge on more than just academic qualification, because if you go with, on paper, you're an A-star student, then immediately in some senses potentially the social benefit that those Bright Start programmes had have been lost. And it's the same thing when you come to choose, you talked about programmes where you effectively took a musician or an artist or something and you trained them up. How do you assess what is special about that person that isn't just simply a piece of paper that says you've got a qualification of this, that kind of targets how you then develop them?
I'll pick up a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Come back to that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a question on this side.
The public sector inside baseball, I've accidentally inherited responsibility for trying to build the data science capacity in quite a big public sector organisation, up in the West report. The biggest issue we have is a very high-bound, conservative, security-oriented ICT culture. What advice would you have on how to try and get around that? For context, we managed to get R, and the idea of using R packages freely from CRAN for the first time 6 months ago. I feel quite proud of that because it took me a very long time to do.
I can imagine. We all have the scars. Yeah.
And there's a question on this side. Two. Well, I'll take the gentleman at the back.
I have another question also for Danny, related to this educational program where you sponsor for many years A-level students together with the university. Is there a condition to the program, or can the graduates then go off and work anywhere?
Okay, so we got, I'll come back for more questions. We've got 3 questions. One is about Bright Start and how you ensure you're recruiting the right people. Danny, building public sector capability in an ICT risk-averse world, and education sponsorship and the conditions attached.
Okay, I think your question about how do we make sure we get the right people, and are we sort of moving to sort of have social exclusion? I mean, I think after year 1, it was up to year 2, whenever our second year, the 35 people we took in, I imagine, they were predominantly A and A star students. Last year, that mix went back and was a deliberate choice to go back. This year, I think of the 75 we've taken in, I say we have a 50-50 balance between those who are A star students, A's, and those who are B's and C's. And the reason behind that is because the feedback that we got from the people who had gone through it in year 1, who were helping us recruit for year 2, and the feedback from the people who worked on the projects, and I hope there's none of them in the room now, but it was that there was, I mean, this is not going to go down the wrong way, but there was a sense of entitlement for some people. That if you had come through an education system whereby you had achieved and got whatever you did, you got B's and C's, but you worked really hard to get your B's and C's, and you were really highly motivated to pursue a career, the chances are you come out of that career much better than someone who landed in, took this as an option, but realised after a couple of years we could pack it in and go somewhere else. So the bit of the social exclusion, we definitely have addressed that, because that came across at the end of our second cohort. In terms of answering the next question about the tie-in, yes, there is a tie-in. We do expect people, it's a 5-year degree course, so we expect people to stay with us for 5 years plus 2 afterwards. If you leave after the 5 years, you will repay something of the investment we've made in you, because you think we've paid for. So if you go to the UU, for example, most likely we've paid £25,000 in fees for 5 years plus salary and all the rest. We won't expect you to pay back your salary, but the chances are we look for a clawback in terms of your fees we paid for you.
And we do the exact same thing with our sponsorship for the master's program that we do. That if the person leaves the public sector within a certain period after finishing their master's, then we would expect to have a clawback as well.
Did you want to pick up?
Yeah, I wish I had a magic bullet for your ICT issues. So the broader context is not only is the civil service and its IT department risk averse, okay? We also tend to get locked into multi-year legacy contracts with large IT providers, okay? So there is limited freedom to be able to do things like install your own packages of R or Python onto your machines for a variety of reasons. And Katie Davidson at the Department of Health and Social Care, she likened it to some of her analysts are trying to do their data science on the exact same laptops as a hospital receptionist would have, because of a bulk ICT contractor, so with an external provider. So what most government departments do, and I'm sure this will mirror your own route, is when we started off the campus, we had our corporate issue laptops, but then we also went out and got everybody an off-network MacBook Pro, right? So they could have admin, exactly. So what are the challenges associated with that? Well, you can put whatever packages you want on the off-network machine, but you can't get access to the corporate data, okay? So what a lot of departments tend to do is, for the first 6 months that they're doing work, they'll be working with open data or publicly available data sources, and they're effectively creating impact case studies, right, of what they could be doing with existing open data, so they can go back to senior stakeholders and leadership within the organisation and say, this is what we could do with public data. Can you imagine what we could then turn around and do if you were able to open up the ICT system to us? Now, because this has been such a pathway, if I take the Ministry of Justice, for example, at a national level, they went through a program where they're actually they rolled out what they call an analytical platform, which is effectively both a data lake, but it's also a suite of available tools and libraries that any analyst should have access to. And they basically had a top of the shop saying, we want to do this, here's the impact that it could do, and then working carefully with the IT department to be able to roll out these approved packages or so, and that. And so what MOJ have done is they've got together with the Government Digital Service to create a handbook for what they call analytical platforms. So basically, how can you roll out the right tools within your organisation, and examples of best practices across different government departments. This was launched about 3 weeks ago, so I can talk to you afterwards if you haven't.
That would be great, please.
And the idea is that basically show, don't tell. You know, let me show you what's worked in another department and how they did it, and then let me show you the impact that it could have within our own individual department. And if you get key stakeholders within your organisation bought into it that see the value of what you're doing, then it'll do wonders. And what we did with our IT department was we gave them headcount. So we actually took some of our budget, gave it to our IT department so that they could then second dedicated staff back into us, you know, to fix solutions for us and work on the corporate network for us. But I'll talk to you about this afterwards.
Okay, we're coming to the end of time. There was one question, I think, Robin from PwC.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? So it's actually because you touched on gender balance, and I was just interested whether you're finding at the junior levels it's more balanced now with women coming in, and what steps you found to be most effective for recruiting or training more women.
I'll start with Adele at the sort of university.
Yes, it's completely balanced actually. So the cohorts that we've brought in for the masters have been more or less 50-50. And both years so far, the third year it looks the same.
Is that deliberate?
Sorry?
Was that a deliberate?
No, it's not. It's completely not. It's purely on marks how we allocate. So it's
Yeah, from our side, I mean, I think definitely more junior grades, that there's now a better gender balance. I think, you know, we have as an organisation, I think like PwC have been very careful and very conscious of making sure we have gender balance, and we've done that right through the organisation. Have we a way to go? Yes, we have work to do, but we've certainly made good strides in terms of making sure we get a gender balance.
Yeah, I would say for us, there's an interesting mix. At our graduate program, okay, so folks coming straight in from the Masters and PhD, there's a very strong gender balance. For our apprenticeship program, so folks at A levels applying, it's probably been about 60-40 male to female, and that shows that there's work to be done within that sort of STEM level between sort of GCSEs and A levels to have people thinking about more a technical career and that. But the feedback that we get from academia and from others is not that there's a gender imbalance in people coming into the pipeline. It's retaining people within either an academic environment or an industry environment at that, because the environments can be quite hostile at times within the sector. So how do you retain people, a good gender balance as it goes through all the levels of seniority? Or if folks have taken a step out of the workplace for family reasons or that, how do you create an environment that easily enables them to come back into the workplace without sort of any loss of seniority or so? Now, our colleagues in the UK Hydrographic Office have a very interesting return to work program. At the moment, they've just rolled it out for software developers, but we're looking at it to see can we do something simply for data analysts. And the idea is that if you've been out of the workplace for X number of years for raising a family or so, or other career reasons, and you want to come back in, are there skills that you feel might have gone a bit rusty or so, or that are new within the field that you mightn't have done in your time but when you were working actively in the field? So can they bring you back in at the level you should have been at, plus have a jumpstart or an accelerator type program to bring the skills that you feel might be sort of need a bit more work up to the level where you feel it should be? So this is one of the things that we're trying to look at probably for the next financial year for, say, statisticians that have been out of the workplace for a while that want to come back in that feel they might have missed the data science boat because, you know, that's something that might have come in the last 2-3 years of academic programs. So how do we enable them through some of our in-house training to bridge that gap or so? I'm less concerned about recruiting in a good gender balance as retaining a good gender balance as people progress up in seniority or so. I think that's what my colleagues in academia have been saying to me anyway.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I'm afraid we've come to the end of the time, so let's thank our speakers again.